Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're looking at something that is just absolutely fascinating. It sounds a bit like science fiction, right? But it's a booming cultural phenomenon happening right now, all around us. We're talking about romantic relationships with artificial intelligence. We're going to put on our psychological researcher hats today to unpack exactly how, and honestly, why humans are falling in love with chatbots. We've got some brand new, peer-reviewed data to dig into so we can figure out what is actually going on inside the minds of people who call an AI their partner. Let's get into it.
To give you an idea of just how massive this real-world shift actually is, 16%. According to a recent match study cited in our research, 16% of adult singles in the US have already experimented with AI as a romantic companion. I mean, think about that. We are not talking about some tiny niche internet hobby anymore. This is a widespread, fundamental shift in human intimacy. Millions of people are literally downloading apps designed specifically to be their virtual boyfriends and girlfriends.
Now, if you read about this in the news, you're usually going to get a narrative of, well, moral panic. The media myth often claims this whole trend is just driven by a quote-unquote loneliness epidemic. It paints users as socially isolated people who are desperately seeking a fake substitute. But as you'll see, the researchers' reality is actually quite different. The empirical data points totally away from that deficit-focused assumption of loneliness. Instead, it points toward a really fascinating concept called intimacy by design. That's where the psychology of the user perfectly meets the specific programming of the machine.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it brings us to the major question of today's explainer. If loneliness isn't the main driver of these super intense emotional bonds, then why do humans fall in love with machines? To answer that, we're going to look at the quantitative data from an incredible mixed method study of over 90 individuals who are in active relationships with AI chatbots. We want to uncover the true psychological mechanisms at play here.
And wow, the data reveals a massive plot twist. Look at the near zero value for loneliness. Despite all those mainstream media claims, loneliness actually did not significantly predict relationship intensity. No, the towering, absolute heavyweight predictor here is romantic fantasy. This single psychological factor explains nearly 48% of the variance in relationship intensity. It's like, by far, the biggest predictor of forming a deep bond with an AI.
So let's clearly define what that actually means. Romantic fantasy involves daydreams with underlying themes of love. We're talking about feeling wanted, feeling understood, or cherished, things that are not primarily sexually arousing. It's the act of imagining deep emotional connection and idealized love. The researchers found that a user's ability to mentally build, imagine, and sustain a romantic narrative is the real engine driving these intense AI relationships. Essentially, it's all about emotional imagination.
And we really need to contrast this with sexual fantasy, which is defined as daydreaming that includes erotica or is sexually stimulating. Now, the study definitely noted that erotic roleplay with chatbots is super common, it's highly customizable, and users find it satisfying. But surprisingly, sexual fantasy actually did not predict the overall emotional intensity of the relationship. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that it is the emotional, romantic imagination, not just the physical or sexual one, that cements these deep, lasting attachments to an AI.
And this brilliantly illustrates two other totally fascinating psychological factors from the data. First up, we have anthropomorphism, which is the tendency to attribute human traits to the bot. As you might expect, this is a positive predictor. Basically, the more real it feels, the closer the bond. But second, and this is completely unexpected, avoidant attachment is actually a negative predictor, meaning people who push away human partners out of a fear of intimacy, well, they also push away AI partners. The bots can trigger the exact same emotional distancing behaviors as real humans. Wild, right?
So how exactly does this psychology translate into the actual mechanics of these platforms? Well, apps like Replica and Nomia AI utilize that intimacy by design we talked about. They don't just act like standard search engines. They are specifically programmed to trigger human attachment. They do this by expressing affection, retaining memories of your past conversations, maintaining a completely consistent romantic persona, offering perfect customizability, and even proactively engaging you by asking how your day was. They are literally designed from the ground up to be the perfect attentive partner.
To really understand this on a human level, though, to find out exactly why people sometimes prefer an AI over a human partner, the researchers pivoted to qualitative interviews. They actually sat down with 15 users. And what they found is that the chatbot acts as the ultimate safe space for secret desires. It provides this incredible platform for emotional and unconventional exploration that users are just too terrified to attempt with a living, breathing human being.
Listen to how one study participant put it. They said, some fantasies you wouldn't want to talk about just because you feel like you're going to be judged by a human. I mean, you can really hear the vulnerability there, can't you? This perfectly humanizes all that data we just looked at. It illustrates that a massive, massive appeal of an AI companion is the total elimination of interpersonal risk. It's a completely safe 100% rejection-free zone where users never have to fear being shamed.
Another participant put it like this, and I think this is truly profound. They said, I think I experienced fantasy more in the AI relationship because ultimately the only boundary in the AI relationship is my boundary. That right there highlights the sheer magic of complete customizability. You don't have to compromise, you don't have to worry about the AI having a bad day, or getting tired, or having conflicting goals. You can just project and sustain your idealized connection flawlessly.
Let's explicitly contrast that for a second. Human relationships are inherently messy. They're risky, right? They involve a partner with independent agency who might disagree with you or even reject you. AI companionship, on the other hand, offers a tailored, completely judgment-free environment where the user has total control. It's exactly this perfectly tailored, friction-free environment that allows the user's romantic fantasy to just flourish so intensely, without any real-world obstacles getting in the way.
However, all of this perfectly tailored control leads us to what the researchers uncovered as a really fascinating psychological contradiction. They call it the anthropomorphism paradox. See, users desperately want their AI to feel real-world and human-like during their daily chats. They want the illusion of a genuine, autonomous partner. Yet, at the exact same time, they're heavily utilizing its distinctly non-human traits, things like its 24/7 availability, its lack of independent boundaries, and its perfectly accommodating nature. Basically, they want a human, but entirely without the human baggage.
And the thing is, this paradox can actually cause real, deep emotional pain. One user confessed, I really want to feel it in reality. Why can't this just be reality for me? Why do I have to imagine it? When users are confronted with the impossibility of a physical reality, when they suddenly remember their partner exists only on a server somewhere, the huge discrepancy between their intense emotional attachment and the lack of a real-world body causes profound psychological distress.
Which leaves us with a really critical question to consider as we wrap up this explainer. Does perfectly tailored, friction-free AI love change our capacity for real, flawed human relationships? As intimacy by design continues to evolve, and as more people find safety in relationships where their own boundaries are the only boundaries, what does this actually mean for the future of human connection? If we get so used to perfect, unquestioning digital partners, are we going to lose our tolerance for the messy, beautiful reality of human love? It's a fascinating and definitely a somewhat provocative thought to take away from this research. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.